The election on Tuesday affected all of us in different ways. We may not all be of one mind politically, but it has become clear we are living in a time of great uncertainty. Some of us are uneasy about the system of governance in which we have placed our faith and trust to preserve our welfare. Some of us are worried about the well-being of people who live on the margins of our society. Some of us are fearful about our children's future, the tensions in our society, and a world that threatens to erupt in economic turmoil or violence. Our fervent hope is that our leaders will be guided by knowledge, compassion, and a sense of equity. Many of us are sorting out how to move forward with compassion and humility and the patience necessary to reach for those whose worldviews may be quite different from our own. We are asking ourselves, what will help heal the wounds dividing our nation? As I struggle to process and respond to current events, I'm reminded of Bell Hook's work, All About Love, in which she states, "The antidote to domination is a love ethic. Domination cannot exist where an ethic of love prevails. An ethic of love invites us to ask, what would love look like in response to this situation?" Historically, Unitarians and Universalists have espoused an ethic of love. For example, in 1930, the Reverend Griswold Williams crafted a congregational covenant, which some of us still recite or might recognize today. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To seek knowledge and freedom and to serve human need. And the latest articulation of our UU values on this poster in front of the pulpit explicitly centers on the spiritual discipline of love. In fact, if you look at the hymnals rack in front of you, you will see carved a rising sun to the left and a setting sun to the right, and a 6-petal flower emblazoned in the center. So when we gather and reach for inspiration, we may be reminded of how our values call us back to love in times of triumph and difficulty. Unitarian Universalist theologian Tandeka believes at the heart of our UU faith, there is a love that goes beyond belief, an enlivening love that resonates in our hearts as care, compassion, generosity, gratitude, and connection. And so she says, therefore, let us hold love at the center of our being with every breath we take and in every encounter we have with others. Let us hold love at the center of our being in moments of solidarity and triumph and in times of despair and uncertainty. Let us hold love at the center of our being when we feel frustrated and stressed or alone and unsupported. Let us hold love at the center of our being when we have been wronged or misunderstood, when we realize how our actions have hurt others. We're not going to find perfection here on Sunday mornings, but we can remind each other to hold love at the center of our being. When we surrender our hearts to love, it does not change anything that may have happened in the past. But in that moment, it changes us. And that changes everything. My colleague, the Reverend Darcy Lane, tells us, our main job as members of a spiritual community is to remember how to love and remind one another when we forget. We remind each other by being love, by embodying and manifesting love, by grounding our actions, our choices, our words in the bedrock of love that underlays and supports our lives. Love is deeper than the suffering and the struggle of any given moment. The love of community, such as this, bathes us in belonging and calls us to see the needs of others as our own. Our past UUA president, the Reverend Susan Frederick Gray, elaborates on her understanding of the role of the church in society when she writes, if our justice work does not emerge from a moral and spiritual value of love, in the end, it will only reinforce new forms of domination and violence. In personal relationships, when we love someone, we wish for them the fullest unfolding and development of who they are. We wish for them freedom, safety, joy, and life. Love, she writes, as a religious practice, extends our compassion, solidarity, and care beyond the personal to seek the liberation and wholeness of every person. It reminds us of our fundamental interdependence with all life. The work of justice, Gray claims, is inseparable from a faith rooted in love. All the great social movements for freedom and justice in our society have promoted an ethic of love. When rightly understood, love can nurture our spirits and transform the world. Many have heard the phrase, social justice is what love looks like in action. Or social justice is what love looks like in public. Mark Nepo reminds us how we are the vehicle through which love manifests when he writes these words. If we strive to engage with one another in love and seek to understand another's pain and longing, that is what matters most. It is a delicate balance between the heart and the mind, to hold the tension between two equal and opposing views. It is a lot like a teeter-totter. Justice does not prevail when one side is up and the other side is down. It is along the axis of understanding and compassion that we can find peace within ourselves and yield expressions of peace to others. There is a sweet spot where both sides are lifted up. And this is the work of beloved community that the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. spoke of. He extolled the power of love to yield transformation through nonviolence resistance. He understood power without love is reckless and abusive, and love without power is sentimental and anemic. But power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice. And justice, at its best, is power correcting everything that stands in the way of love. Now, my sermons would be nothing without a story. So I want to share a parable about repairing and rebuilding the world, told by Paulo Coelho in his book, Like the Flowing River. Perhaps you can picture yourself if you've had small children in your home. A parent is trying to read a newspaper. Okay, that's dated, but the story's still good. While their small child pesters them. The parent, who tires of the interruptions, tears out a page from the newspaper with a map of the world on it, cuts the page into several pieces and hands them to the child and says, "There, now you have something to do. You, in your hands, have a map of the world. Now see if you can put it back together correctly." The parent resumes reading the paper, confident the task will keep the child busy for the rest of the day. 15 minutes later, however, the child returns with the map. In astonishment, the parent asks, "Has someone been teaching you geography?" The child replies, "I don't even know what that is. But there was a photo of someone on the other side of the page. So I put the person back together and found I had put the world back together too." I put the person back together, and I found I had put the world back together